You're sitting by a fire thousands of years ago. There's no medicine. There's no science. There's no Friday night, no weekend, no bar to collapse into after a long week of aggressively trying not to get eaten. There's just you, a genuinely difficult life, and a growing suspicion that being fully conscious for all of it might be a mistake. So you start looking at the plants. And congratulations, you're about to join humanity's oldest, most enthusiastic, and least sensible tradition, deliberately rearranging your own brain for a few hours and calling it spiritual. Here's the thing nobody tells you about your ancestors. Long before they built cities, invented writing, or figured out farming, humans across the entire planet had already mastered one very specific skill: how to get high, not in one place, everywhere. Separate groups of people on different continents who had never met and never could all looked at the plants around them and independently reached the same conclusion. Some of these will make the voices in your head louder, and that is apparently worth pursuing. In some places, we invented altered states before we invented the wheel. Sit with that for a second. We worked out how to trip before we worked out how to roll a log. And this isn't a guess. We have the receipts. Literal chemical receipts. High in the Bolivian Andes, in a rock shelter, archaeologists found a small pouch stitched together from 3 fox snouts that had belonged to a shaman about 1,000 years ago. And when scientists analyzed what was inside, it turned out this guy was walking around with a full pharmacy. The residue contained cocaine from coca leaves, bufotenine, DMT harmine, the active ingredient in ayahuasca, and possibly psilocin, the compound in magic mushrooms. One person 1,000 years ago was carrying a chemical cocktail that would get a modern music festival shut down. He didn't have a laboratory. He had a bag made of fox faces, and he knew exactly what he was doing. And it wasn't just South America. Closer to home, in fact, on the Spanish island of Minorca, archaeologists found strands of human hair carefully and ritually buried from about 3,000 years ago. They ran it through a mass spectrometer, and the hair was practically soaked in drugs. Atropine, scopolamine, a hallucinogen so powerful it can wipe your memory, and ephedrine, a stimulant. Now here's the part that lives in my head rent-free. Minorca is covered in enormous ancient stone monuments, giant, heavy, back-breaking megaliths, and some researchers think that stimulant may have been used while building them, which means it is genuinely possible that some of humanity's most impressive ancient monuments were assembled by people who were, to put it kindly, absolutely wired. The next time someone marvels at how ancient people moved those massive stones, the most honest answer might just be chemically. And the menu was long. Every culture had its own house specialty, like the world's most alarming prehistoric food court. Opium shows up in Europe thousands of years ago. Magic mushrooms appear across multiple continents. In the Americas, there's the San Pedro cactus, loaded with mescaline, still used in ceremonies to this day. Tobacco, long before it was a cigarette, was treated as a serious spiritual drug. Wherever a plant existed that could reach into the human mind and flip a switch, some human, somewhere, found it, tried it, and, crucially, told everyone else. And you really have to admire how they figured all this out, because there was no manual. No label reading psychoactive, please use responsibly. There was just a forest full of plants, some of which would heal you, some of which would show you God, and some of which would simply kill you where you stood. And from the outside, they all looked more or less identical. So the knowledge got built the hard way. Somebody had to eat the mushroom that turned out to be poison so that everybody else learned not to. Early humans didn't have chemistry. They had volunteers. Every single plant in your ancestors' medicine kit was in there because, at some point, a very brave or very hungry person tried it and survived long enough to pass on the warning. It was science. It just had a horrifying failure rate. But here's what makes all of this completely different from a modern Saturday night. For most of history, getting high wasn't recreational. It was holy. This was how you spoke to the dead, how you met your gods, how you healed the sick, glimpsed the future, and made sense of a terrifying, unexplained world you'd been dropped into without a manual. The person who took the plants wasn't the guy ruining the party. He was the single most important person in the tribe, the shaman. His entire job was to consume the plant, leave his body, travel somewhere the rest of you couldn't follow, and come back with answers. Just think about that career. While everyone else was hunting, gathering, and quietly dying of infected splinters, this one man's professional responsibility was to get profoundly high and file a report. It was arguably the first job in history that didn't involve manual labor, and people didn't mock him for it. They revered him, because to them, he wasn't escaping reality, he was visiting a truer one. Now, and this is the part the internet always conveniently skips, let's be honest about the timeline. You'll see people confidently claim humans have been tripping for 50, 60, 100,000 years right back to the dawn of the species. And the truth is, we can't actually prove that. The solid chemical, this definitely happened evidence mostly reaches back a few thousand years, not tens of thousands. A lot of the really ancient claims are educated guesses or genuinely disputed for a very simple reason. Plants rot, and drugs don't fossilize. So the real story isn't cavemen were tripping at the dawn of time. It's something stranger. The moment humans got advanced enough to leave evidence behind at all, the evidence was already there, waiting for us, soaked into a 1,000-year-old bag of fox snouts. The habit is at least as old as civilization itself. It may be far, far older. We just can't prove the older part, yet. And maybe that's the most human thing in the entire story. We like to think of this as a modern problem, something that arrived with cities and stress and boredom and bad decisions, but it's the exact opposite. The urge to step outside your own mind, just for a little while, is one of the oldest instincts we have. Older than writing, older than farming, possibly older than everything we proudly call civilization. Your distant ancestor sitting by a fire, chewing on something they almost certainly shouldn't have, that wasn't a glitch in the human story. That was a chapter that never actually closed. We didn't invent getting high. We inherited it, and every version of it since, every drink, every smoke, every substance a human has ever reached for to feel a little less like themselves is just the newest verse of a song we started singing thousands of years ago, around a fire in the dark, hoping that something out there would finally talk back.